I've been pretty busy past couple of weeks, so
Dude, totally understandable.
it has not been very prominent in my brain space.
Dude, I feel you. I can only imagine, like, also with, like, is it turning into extra stages of hell in Arizona right now?
I mean, there were certain parts of the state that were at 130 degrees a couple of weeks ago.
Holy moly!
It was only 100 out today.
Well, that's
It's been on the low side.
yeah. Oh, our world is what's the song? Rage, Raging Inferno, something.
I believe the song is. Have you seen Bo Burnham's Inside?
I have not, and everyone's just been telling me about it constantly, and I've yeah, I have not yet.
That's essentially how I feel about life. Full of loneliness and misery and suffering and unhappiness. And it's all over much too quickly. The question is, have I learned anything about life?
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Essences in After Dark, your weekly, bi-weekly, twice a month, whenever annual podcast from Essences in. It's been a while since we've been on the air, and a car accident will do that to you. But I'm back, and with me I have our studious co-host Andy Pyrana Baldwin. Andy, how the hell are you doing?
I'm doing well. I was also not involved in a car accident, so I do have that going for me.
Yep, that's my fault for setting the bar pretty low on that regard.
That's okay. You came out of that all right, though, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. All things aside, though, there's a lot of events that occurred over the 3-4 week gap since the last episode. 6 weeks before you and I were in an episode, and so just man, it's a long list, and there's even more that went on in like the passing 3 or 4 days. Like conspiracy theories involving Hideo Kojima and Silent Hill, and that rabbit hole is a big mess. But more specifically, one of the major topics is something that you wanted to cover a good minute ago. Apologies for us getting into it late. But it's probably going to spark potentially an expansion on topics on the podcast. So incorporating more movie-related content, more cartoon-related content, maybe more anime-related content on the podcast. I'm not sure. We'll see where that goes. But Andy, I want to ask you specifically, did you take a peek, or were you involved either during or you caught like the after show of the Summer Game Fest showcase?
Only vicariously.
Meaning,
I was mostly in it. Uh, I saw E3. Is that what we're calling it these days?
oh no, I do, but I thought the Summer Game Fest was a different thing before E3.
I think so as well, but they have some overlap.
Yes, same thing with also the Nintendo's thing, and this Sony. Yeah, Sony had a state of play this. No,
I mean, isn't Nintendo just done with E3?
Yes, but they always do their,
Like
their
they do not formally present at E3. They just run E3 adjacent.
yes. Which, I mean, more power
And
to them.
since E3 knocked out indie devs about a decade-ish ago, it's basically just Microsoft and Sony being like, "Hello, we have the things."
Well, yeah. The funny thing about that is, the indies are back. They're just now first-party studios of Microsoft, because Microsoft keep buying everybody.
I mean, they have no choice. Their in-house development is pretty limited.
Oh, very much starkingly so. But reoccurring listeners and newcomers to the video podcast version of this may call back to you and our or just our conversations regarding Microsoft and our pattern of saying 3 steps forwards with some great things and 10 steps back, and having the potential of great things ahead of them, and then typically not executing on them very well. I will say Microsoft is doing a good job so far. I hope they don't stumble.
Given their past endeavors, recent and more historic, we'll just put a pin in that one and we'll come back to it.
Oh, actually, in more than one ways. We won't really get into it on this episode, but the next episode with Lewis co-hosting, we will be talking a lot about Windows 11. And that's also Microsoft. And Microsoft has a pattern with the Windows operating system of a good release, a bad release, a good release, a bad release, and a somewhat good release. Hopefully, when we say...
Where are we in that cycle?
Windows 10 was considered, in relation to Windows 8, a good release.
Okay.
Speaking back on the Summer Game Festival showcase thing, though, I do want to basically point out 3 specific things. Metal Slug is returning. It looks fantastic. I think it'll be a cute little tactical game. It's Metal Slug Tactics. Elden Ring, the studio behind Demon Souls, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, teaming up with George R.R. Martin for the spiritual successor. I believe confirmed to be in the same universe. They're coming out with Elden Ring, and it looks great. It looks fantastic, actually, better than I expected. Probably won't play it. Nothing against the devs and the games. It's not my type of it's not my forte personally. And then Hideo Kojima. And I got to give it to Kojima, man. Like, there's a running gag of him inadvertently predicting the future. And I know predicting the future technically really isn't that difficult to do. But in the key sentiments of his games and what essentially comes up maybe like a year after, or in this case, not even a full year, Death Stranding, his whole little message to the world about how we're becoming so isolated and disconnected, and how we need to be more human and connect on a more emotional, personal level, basically spoke volumes, months later when the pandemic hit. So he even, in his little interview, talked about wanting to make a game that hopefully does not predict the future. And because he wants to do that, he's going to rethink how he approaches game design on his next project. So I thought that was kind of cool. Thought it was kind of funny. I'm looking forward to what he does next. And as you all know, I am a legitimate fan of Death Stranding. So, flame me for that if you will, but it is what it is.
Are you going to be getting the director's cut?
Depends. I want to see what it adds. And if it doesn't add a whole heap a lot, I'm hoping that they'll just roll it as like a free DLC on PC. If it comes out as a standalone title on PC and there's no significant additions, like real significant additions, then no. Welcome to Essences in After Dark, the show for the show for tangents. I remember a few episodes with us a while ago. I talked about how I bought Skyrim like multiple times, and I remember you kind of gave like a shockingly disgruntled "really" at me.
Yep.
And so here's my stance on things like director's cut and re-releases / remasters, etc. It has to have a substantial amount of differences added to it for me to buy, or for me to just even warrant the idea of buying it again. For Skyrim, again, I bought it originally on 360. Then I bought it on PC specifically for the modding support. And I don't care what anyone says, modding is what makes Bethesda games great, bar none. Then I bought it again when the special edition came out, which was a bump up in the engine, and again it added like better performance. It increased the what am I looking for? The capabilities for modding. So like the actual data structures and the limits expanded on modding, so you do even more now. And there was an actual graphical boost, but I didn't really care for the graphical boost because, mods took care of that. But I guess with the performance boost, it still helps overall. And that also warranted me to buy the special edition for Skyrim. And again, none of them were at full price aside from the 360 when I initially bought it. So same thing will stand here with Death Stranding Director's Cut. If I feel that the content is there, maybe. If not, then I'll just keep playing my current Death Stranding. So.
Well, all right.
Yeah. Anywho's though, while Bethesda can continue to eat, sleep, and potentially bring back their shinier public image under Microsoft now, and with games like Starfield. Starbound is definitely not Bethesda. Some other game companies are not doing so hot. First on the block is
City.
Yeah, well, in the long run, sure, but
in the long run,
yes. Short run, they're getting flamed and hit left and right, and especially, and this I should add more stuff to this now. But so CD Projekt Red. So aside from the whole Cyberpunk release and the fallout with that game, I still say they should not have released Cyberpunk on last gen tech. Just shouldn't. I give them kudos for trying to continue to push updates to make the last gen copies of that game perform better, to be better,
playable at all.
Yeah, and they just should have done it. They should, very rarely where I'm like,
I'm very curious
man.
How much money they made from releasing on last gen consoles, though?
That is a good question.
Because there has been a notable, unless it's been resolved recently, there's been a notable shortage of current gen, next gen. Where are we? Middle-aged gen.
I guess we can call it current gen now. I don't know.
Can we? Are there enough of them out there?
Probably not.
But I mean, since there was a shortage of those consoles, then releasing to the previous gen consoles, if maybe not resulting in the best experience, it may have been wise to do from a strictly business standpoint.
Yeah.
Is everybody happy about it?
Oh no,
they are not.
No.
But did it result in bankroll? Entirely possible. I do not know the numbers.
The set.
I can understand why you would do it, though. I can also understand why you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
But other than being the moral paragons that we are for the gaming community, I'm not sure how much of a how willing Sony would be to take my financial advice on where to or not to release their games.
Well, see, that's the sadder part about it now. I believe we did mention this a few episodes back, saying how there were people actually looking into legal actions against Cdpr, specifically for like the investors going. They lied to them about the state of the game for last gen consoles, and therefore they want to seek reparations for the money they sunk into it, which personally I find that a bit nefarious. One, if you're investing, that's part of investing, there's risk. I understand if you were truly lied to, but we don't fully know what conversation was going on in those meetings, so I'll leave that for the courts to fully get into with all the drama, and as the kids say these days, all the tea spillage. Huh? I'm hip. But no, so
nailed it.
Thank you for the pity compliment.
I mean, that's how you score those yeet points, right?
Oh, those YPs? Oh yeah, man. All about those YPs. It's a new cryptocurrency, yeet points. Yeet coin. Sure. Yeah. We should create a crypto coin called Yeet Coin. I was about to
what have we done?
Anyway, though, so with those going for them, they'll have that to deal with. And I believe the first wave is starting now or starting soon. that aside, we all know that they were hit with the ransomware a couple of months ago, in which case all employees at CD Projekt Red were locked out of the computers. They had to disconnect from the servers, do a rollback. They lost some data. I believe, from what they stated, no customer data was involved, but a heap of personal information around employees was involved and was leaked and etc. But also the more damaging portion to this was they lost a lot of their source code, or let's say lost. People stole their source code. So the source code for for Witcher 3, Gwent, Cyberpunk, and I believe like a couple of other things as well. And that's going to hurt your bottom line. And in fact, because of this, along with the bad press related to the last gen release of Cyberpunk, as well as the issues that PC and the latest gen of consoles are experiencing, and what's the Holland? I think Holland. The Holland stock market headquarters exchange things for that part of the world. CD Projekt Red stock tanked. Just took a massive bullet to not the brain. Maybe the chest. Yeah, let's go with the chest. So you
can survive a shot to the heart.
Can you?
No.
Okay. Well, they probably can, just very, very low odds. Oof. But yeah, so that's where they're at.
Well, some vital organs notwithstanding.
True. But they just got a lot being tacked on with them, and also the hackers, they sold the source code, they released certain other files. So typically when developers are working on games, they do like little recordings of the progress, and apparently some videos of developers having fun with a lot of the glitches and bugs that are currently baked into Cyberpunk released, and showed essentially the crew knew what state the game was in, and so now that's rubbing people the wrong way by saying, well, you're fully aware that the game was not in a releasable state, and yet you released it anyway. And of course, some developers are getting flack online, some other employees of the company itself, and just PSA. Don't do death threats, people. It's just no, be better than that. And two, I would suggest do some research to know where to direct your anger towards. Personally, I don't think devs are the biggest factor to blame here. I think primarily you want to look at management. Primarily you want to look at the big wigs of companies, studios, publishers, etc. That's where you might want to direct your anger with, and do it justly, not personal attack-y or whatever. Oof. But
we have had this discussion before.
Yeah,
regrettably.
Yeah, and it's always good to bring it back, just to keep people fresh, and reminded that we're all human and we do make mistakes, and
take your mental tea kettle off of boiling.
Yep, it's great to hold people accountable, but there's holding people accountable, and then there's a lynch mob. Two greatly different things. Speaking of lynch mobs,
we've also had the discussion. Yeah, speaking of lynch mobs, but we've also had the discussion about games getting released prematurely and then patching into a more playable state.
I got a tangent a little bit later on. Actually, let me see if I can. Pokemon clone game thing, people, 2 games and dev now. Anyway, speaking of lynch mobs, EA was also hacked, and they lost, or not say lost because they still have it, but now hackers have it as well. FISA's source code was stolen, so the Frostbite engine source code was stolen, and of course EA was like, oh yeah, there's no risk to our client data or customer data or player data. But when it comes to EA, they've been hacked before, they've been breached before, and they've given the statement of, oh yeah, no customer data has been leaked, and that has been a lie. So only time will tell if you see if you use Firefox lock safe, whatever. If you get a ping saying your email or your password has been found on a password dump list on a hacker site, go change your passwords and don't use the same password multiple times. Yeah. But speaking on what you mentioned earlier about us talking about pre-release games and patching to fix it to be a whole set game earlier, it's completely left field as well. Did you see the Pokemon clone game that involves guns and using their little pocket pals as shields?
I have heard of it. I haven't looked at it specifically because that description enough was like that was good enough for me to just be like, no, no, no.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. I heard about the description. I said, this is god awful. This is gonna be horrible. It's not gonna even look right. I went and watched the video. I'm kind of curious now.
No.
I'm sorry, but like
seriously, I have heard that it does look pretty good and that it plays at least decently.
But when I first heard,
me, no, but
I would say watch the video first, because when I first read the description and how people were talking about it, they made it sound like it was like GTA with Pokemons, like you're shooting Pokemons and they're bleeding out, yada yada yada. It's not. It actually seems like the violent aspect of it is far more comical, and just extreme. It's hard to explain, and like it starts off all cutesy.
Difficult to explain without making it sound like a travesty.
Yeah. No, I mean, it still is, just not as bad.
Okay.
I'm sorry, you grabbed a little sheep and then just throws it aside. But the issue here is, though, I mean, there's multiple issues here, but the issue that I'm referring to is that people found out that the people behind this game, I believe it's called Pal World, the developers were already working on an early access game that was kind of like a Breath of the Wild inspired MMO kind of thing. And again, it actually looks great. It looks good. It looks like it performs well. But you don't just take that time where you're still early developments of one thing and because this isn't a big studio. This is an indie startup, small group, blah, blah, blah. It makes me feel bad because I now think neither of these games are going to get finished. And they actually look somewhat appealing. They look interesting. Finish your games. Don't finish one thing before you move on to the next. I'm a hypocrite in that in many regards for other projects, but I'm not sitting here charging people for unfinished products. So I think I have a little bit of leeway to say that. Anyway, back onto EA, by the way. The CEO just got denied a bonus by the board of directors of EA due to, of course, unsatisfactory results in terms of everything. So it's kind of funny to see that the CEO was like, "Oh, well, I want my 30 million bonus this year," and they were like, "Nope, you don't deserve it. You don't." And my question is, where were they like every year for the last 5 years?
Where were they every year?
Yeah.
Period. Full stop.
You know what?
Then God said, "Let there be light." And the EA investors said, "No CEO bonus." And God looked upon his works and he saw that it was good.
There's still hope in humanity. It came rather late, but there's still hope in humanity. Speaking of hope and humanity, let's talk about super ultra violence in cartoons.
Speaking of hope and humanity, let's destroy that with some discussion.
So this was the big topic on the list that you wanted to dig into, and I'm curious as to what had you you run to sink your teeth into this.
I hadn't seen anything quite like it before. Obviously, I have seen it, I've seen Watchmen, but even that doesn't quite deliver the same vibe as You can never say the name of the show. You just have to show the splash screen.
That's fair, and I do agree with that sentiment. I think what comes closest in
To be clear, we're talking about Invincible.
oh yeah, we didn't say
We
the
should
thing.
probably.
'Cause I'm thinking like for the video, I can edit in the picture of the title and the blood splatter. But it's like, oh yeah, the audio only version.
Yeah, if you want to do it, you can do it.
Yeah. But yes, the only thing closest to Invincible that I would actually put a mark on, and again, it's still not in the same region, and not the movie. Not the movies. Well, I guess the movie counts too. But Kick-Ass. But even Kick-Ass did not have this.
But Kick-Ass doesn't have the twist.
Yes, that's what I was. Yeah.
So, if you have not seen Invincible, stop listening to the podcast.
Spoilers.
You're about to spoil everything.
Yep.
Stop listening to the podcast. Go watch Invincible. It's on Netflix. If you can't watch it on Netflix, you know what to do.
Wait, is it on Netflix?
Isn't it on Netflix?
I think it's
Is
on.
it
I
not?
think it's on Amazon.
Oh, it is on Amazon. Don't listen to me. It's been too long. Time is ephemeral. Chaos is a step ladder.
Everything about Invincible, I won't say not everything, but like 95% of Invincible, I bloody loved, and I used the British bloody love on purpose, and I like you say though, like there's not. I can't really think of anything that comes into like the same lane as Invincible. And to be fair, a lot of this is what I wanted from like the refresh from like Marvel and DC, and I honestly believe parts of it is what like both Marvel and DC were trying to do with some of their comic book lines, but fans were like, no, and that's fair. When you have your audience, you have your audience. But damn, is it such a breath of fresh air to have a whole new fan base rise up with no preconceived notions, no preconceived ideas, and just being able to let a story just run with this new direction.
Let's not be too hasty here. Like, you have to confess that at some level, the only reason why this show is even remotely successful is because of Marvel and DC. Like, this show as if like, I understand that this is a comic book TV show, but I don't think that most of its audience goes in there thinking of it as a comic book TV show. It's a superhero. It's like an animated superhero show. But there's no way you're going to be able to get away with an animated superhero show without superheroes re-entering into the cultural zeitgeist, right? Like, this show doesn't exist without Marvel and DC. Just like full stop.
I don't
now,
know.
Obviously, it's different from Marvel and DC, but I don't think that you could put this show out in like pre Iron Man 1 and have it hit the same kind of success that it has clearly hit.
I don't know. I'm actually going to challenge you there. I honestly, I think it's easier. It got popular much more easier because of DC and Marvel. But honestly, I think this could have had the same phenomenon as like Rick and Morty did. Like, just it come out of nowhere, completely different, blindsides, and just holds its own in its own right.
Are you saying it's about to tank hard in season 2?
Yeah. Because another discussion to have maybe later on the topic would be like the comparison between the comics, because I think it's important to tell certain people who may not actually, because I've actually had friends who thought that Invincible was like strictly freshly new. It has been around for quite some time. I mean, like the creator behind it, Rob Kirkland, I think his name. Oh my god, I'm gonna.
I have no idea. I literally didn't know that it was based on a comic book until I was almost done with it.
Right.
Then they're like, "Yeah, this is actually a comic book," and I was like, "Oh."
Yes, Robert Kirkman, and he's collabed with people like not Todd McFarlane, Spawn's creator. Is it Todd McFarlane? Yes, Todd McFarlane, because I confused him with Seth MacFarlane. I want to make sure I wasn't talking about Family Guy. But yeah, and there is a fan base that was there for it already, just very small, and even they had some opinions to voice because the cartoon takes a lot of the comics events and puts them in a different timeline order. But even they're kind of like, oh no, it's still fine. Like the way they changed it still fits in a way that makes sense canonically and plot wise, and so even the fan base that was already there prior to the show is okay with it, from what I've seen. From what I seen. But yeah, it's I don't know, man. It was just a friggin' great thing to witness, and
yeah, it's got a really good setup, really good payoff. Everything comes together very nicely with a bow. Like I can appreciate a show that can end a season with everything more or less wrapped up while still giving you a plot point to be able to consider should another season come around. And is another season actually confirmed? I think it is, but I don't know for certain one way or another.
I'm pretty sure it is. And if it's not, Amazon is completely mentally deprived. Season 2.
I'm sure if it's not formally announced, it'll. I feel confident that it's going to be coming.
I'm seeing certain websites say season 2 and a season 3 are confirmed, but I don't really know these sites. Oh, Tech Radar, that they're somewhat what's the word I'm looking for? Legitimate, I guess.
I mean, that's good enough for me.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm totally on board with it. I do wonder, will they keep certain other events coming? Like there are some real events that they could pull again from the comics if they keep the same story elements to pull from, that I could see being incredibly controversial. And speaking on that, I'm actually kind of surprised there isn't a bigger complaint on the violence from season 1. In all honesty, I'm kind of shocked.
That's a fair assessment. You think maybe the boys had something to do with that?
I think the boys could. So like. When I think of the boys, I think that makes Amazon more open to allow super hyper violent series go out. But even from a more public perspective, the boys already have like the paint of the boys gives you if you're not into violence, don't watch this. Whereas with Invincible, you have the super bright colors, the super kid-friendly designs, you have the very welcoming, warm, upbeat attitudes. Then you also get a bunch of the gore. And I just expected people to go, well, you shouldn't, have this be so like the argument with when it comes. No, let me not do that example because people will. I'm doing it anyway. I know it's not a 1-to-1. It's not trying to be a 1-to-1.
Right, then I will tell you ahead of time that you are wrong. Continue.
Okay. The argument about the jewels and the what do you call those things? The vape juice. And people said, vape juices that were flavored with things like, fruits and candies and things were real marketing towards kids. And adults was like, well, I'm an adult who wants strawberry flavored vape juice.
Flavor.
Yeah. And I was like, well, that makes sense. And while I understand the concept of like, yeah, kids would probably want to do strawberry stuff. The problem isn't that it's strawberry. The problem is just you got people who would sell vape stuff to kids. That's so and the same thing here. So, but I am pleasantly happy and surprised that that has not been the case so far. But again, I am worried that future potential events could cause that crowd to kind of rear its ugly head. And basically, I'm trying to think about the best ways to say this. I don't know. Expect something that is for a mature audience, and say that it shouldn't have been placed in it, and therefore bad and needs to be put away.
Think of the children.
Yes, probably not even. That's like that'll be camp 1, but there'll be like camp 2 who will say, "Oh, this just promotes something that doesn't happen," and it does. I don't want to. I don't want to spoil it, and then 2, it's actually kind of.
We have already warned people to get out of here. We have warned them that there would be spoilers.
Well, spoilers for the show.
Oh,
I'm talking about potential events that happens in the comic that the show has yet to cover.
Okay, yes. Don't tell me that.
Yeah. So
I haven't read the comic.
Yeah, and granted, I am not. I've only read certain bits and pieces and things, and I'm trying to decide whether or not I want to keep going, because part of me is like, I want to know the show only timeline pattern of events, and the comics is like kind of contrasting that, and it's like, they're battling, and I don't want to, we'll see. I don't know. But yeah, man, it's phenomenal, and I know is it Valorant Comics, I think. Oh my god, it's not Valorant is a video game. It's the publisher behind Kick-Ass.
Oh geez, I have no idea.
Because like years ago, okay, maybe I'm wrong. It's not. That says Icon Comics. I don't know. It's something with the V. But they were said to have been working on a deal with Netflix to do like, their comic book lines to be animated adaptions in like a little universe thing in Netflix. I don't know if that's still happening because I haven't seen Jack Diddley Squat. As a matter of fact, the only thing I saw from Netflix was a cool, hyper crazy comical founding fathers of America thing. And it looks absolutely hilarious. I'm talking about George Washington with chainsaw Wolverine blade things, and oh god, it looks hilarious. And I'm pretty sure Netflix is only gonna do like what, 1 season, 2 seasons, and it'd be like, oh, it's done. Netflix.
So the show is good.
Very good. Very
that is the conclusion to be drawn out of that.
There's so much I want to talk about, so many things that could potentially lead into stuff that has not happened this season yet. I will just say this though. So talking about strictly in season 1,
it sounds like they have a lot of good material to work with if they stay the course, and also that there's a lot of interesting branches that they could do if they deviate from the source material. Absolutely.
And I'm really impressed of how they did characterization. Like absolutely impressed, like bar none. For instance, the scene of Omni-Man talking with what's his name? The tailor.
Oh yeah.
Dude, I thought he was gonna murk him, but like, those were like early signs of showing you that he's actually has developed some form of humanity, and those are like the
So in my opinion, the show lets you stay with the questions of where specifically are Omni-Man's loyalties, or what does he think of any given person that he's affiliated with.
Oh yes, most definitely.
Like I'm not going to say that I think he's with humanity or against humanity, or like how much humanity, so forth and so on. Insert the word humanity 15 times here. Mm-hmm. Because I guess I just wasn't completely convinced as to his humanity. I guess we'll make it 16 times. But I like the idea that you don't really know for certain.
So
at the end of like the last episode.
Well, I'll still interject there and say, while I agree with that sentiment, point that I still see is he is at least not 100% for the Vitramites, because he would have continued his mission, killed his son,
exactly.
and so and so. So
but I think that's literally the only statement that you can make in full confidence. And after that, I think you start speculating. I just don't think that we know enough. I don't think that we learned enough about the character to be like, oh yeah, he did this action because he was being a particularly nice guy that day.
Fair. I will treat it like I treat my One Piece in terms of which how Oda plants seeds in chapter 1 and then calls back to it on chapter 1017, which did happen, by the way. I kid you not. Literally, chapter 1017 of One Piece has a very significant moment that calls back to a very significant moment in chapter 1. But
that's cool.
So, like you say, there are certain situations or certain events that happens that I guess you can still question. To me, I think they're purposely done to give you a sense of saying that he may just not know exactly. He's questioning might not be the right word. More so like maybe a subconscious thing or just what's the word I'm looking for? Not falter. Yeah, faltering. Because people did ask, if you're Omni-Man and you have a bloody suit, why would you hide it in your house? You know, people also point out they're saying, like, you know, if your job was to create more Vitramites, why only one son? You know,
what's his job?
Huh?
Create more Viltrumites?
No, it's to conquer, but also to spread and make Viltrumite a stronger, not just a race, but a stronger culture, or a stronger union, a stronger world.
I mean, okay, that one I can actually kind of see some rationale behind, because if you live effectively, like, didn't they say that they live forever, or like almost forever? They
like 10,000, thousands of years or so.
Then there's honestly having progeny one at a time just to like size them up. There's no rush, really. Like,
fair.
Your job is to create more Viltrumites, and you create a new, like, if you create a new Viltrumite every 20 years, you're still gonna have like a ton of Viltrumites by the time anybody shows up.
True, that's fair. But yeah, so I guess that one is taken care of. You don't kill your wife when you know she's asking questions and things that you're not cool with. You don't go and completely tear apart the organization that can actually be the biggest threat to your invasion. And if you truly did not care about,
you can at least chalk up those two and any other, like, why not make this like clearly rational human-based decision to just raw ego? Like, why would I not take down the biggest threat to me? Because it's not really that big of a threat, you know?
Well, see,
if this thing looks like a problem, you can just be like, yeah, well, it's not really a problem.
But it was first episode. He did not win that fight easily.
I mean, but he still won. Like,
he won against that particular set of people, and then later, and like he knows about Cecil, and yet Cecil gave him trouble. Not like, you know, like the justice group of people or whatever, but that's still, like, Cecil's a crazy smart person, and like he came up with the robots to give him some trouble as well. And I believe, well, let me not even quote the comics or anything, and that's not the sport. It's season 1 stuff. But he had trouble fighting those bionic cyborgs. So, you know, even if you say the ego bit was there, which I actually do believe as well, it's still one of the things of like, yeah, no, that fight in the first episode was a big deal. Let me go ahead and squash everything so another team like that can't pop up that I might not know about, you know? So that's why I think a lot of those events, because like when he told his wife that maybe I wanted you to find my outfit, I think there actually might be some truth in there. Not completely that's why he did it, but I think there's some underlying reasons. Because again,
I like the idea that the first season can be over and you're still just like, but why?
Exactly. Because and again, he had no reason to not kill his tailor. The dude showed up. He knows, and he knows that, you know, the cat's out of the bag in this regards, and yet he still gives the man a beer. And they reminisce about the past, And the Taylor's like, okay, I'm about give me some beer. I'm about to die. And no, he lets him live. Doesn't torture him. Doesn't break a leg. Doesn't say keep your mouth shut. Just hey, we had some good times together. Toodaloo, flies away. Oh God, man, Omni-Man. He feels like the Endeavor, and I'm probably giving you a lot of anime references that you probably aren't that attached to, but he gives me Endeavor vibes, but with even more depth. Ugh.
You are right on both counts.
I guess for those who want more context, Endeavor is a character from the anime / manga Boku no Hero Academia, also known as My Hero Academia. He's the fire dude, the number 2 hero who later becomes the number 1 hero after All Might, the number 1 hero, retires because he passes on his ability to Deku, the protagonist. And that's as much as I'll give you in that regards, but just know that Endeavor has some really negative aspects that goes deeper into his character and ties into like abuse, redemption, and then being okay with knowing that he can never be forgiven for some of the things that he's done, but still pushes forward with the weight of I guess, the world in this case on his shoulders. So I digress. But yeah, Omni-Man just freaking hilarious. And I know I said I loved the characterizations across the entire show with their characters. I know some people had problems with Amber and also had problems with the best friend. Was it Ricky?
I don't remember his exact name, but I do know who you're talking about.
Yes. So, some people say that, Amber was kind of a witch in how she acted and reacted. And honestly, I completely disagree. I think a lot of people are attuned to their perceptions of like, oh, if I was a superhero, it'd be like this, or if I did a superhero, I'd be like this. And if I put my shoes, if I put my feet in Amber's shoes, and I'm like, I mean, yeah,
you're like, wow, I got real big feet.
Yeah. But no, I think I wouldn't. I don't see anything that's not believable or reasonable in how she acted and how she reacted. Now, I do think that as an adult, I'd be like, okay, yeah, this relationship is not for me, and I definitely would not be trying to salvage it because freaking superhero. If that's a problem, then definitely no, go find somebody else. But then I also
gracefully bow out and exit stage left.
Yes,
sorry, I can't do this. I mean, I agree with like where you're headed with this assessment, which is like how it's like, okay, if this isn't how you think a person should act in this situation, how should they act? How would you act? Really think you're going to be some kind of paragon of virtue in this particular situation? There is a lot going on here. There's a lot to absorb.
Yeah. And
imagine
also
finding out your significant other has superpowers. Might like it.
Also, they're still young. They're teenagers getting ready to go to college. You think they have the best decision-making skill or mindset?
They do not. They're dumb as bricks.
Yeah.
All teenagers are incredibly stupid. I was a teenager for like 6 or 7 years, depending on when you want to start counting. I was dumb the entire time.
Exactly. So I miss me with that BS about Amber being all this and all that. Granted, some decisions I don't agree with. That does not make her a bad character. It does not make her stupid. It does not make her a witch. It not at all. It really doesn't. No. And for the best friend, people say that they were kind of used as a token, and fair preference. I'm not gay. I cannot speak on the representation of how I would want to see characters like me presented in the concept of seeing a gay character in a series. However, from what I garnered, it never seemed to me that him being gay was like the token aspect of, look at me, I'm a gay character, look at me, ooh, I'm gay. He just happened to be gay. He happened to be the best friend, and they actually explored bits and pieces in his life. Oh, look, he's trying to find...
or was it the catalyst for any negative behavior?
Yeah.
Which I think is important.
Absolutely. So I think people didn't like when, well, I'm pretty sure a lot of people didn't like the portion where they went to do the tour of the college and he was trying to, you know, get with the jock guy. But some people say that was basically just kind of doing it for no reason or whatever. It's like, no, we've seen the best friend character try to go get dates, try to go get a number and everything, and like in a complete heterosexual situation. I'll say it like this. I've always seen people say, I want exactly how things are written for the common normalized situation, but then just put it in a way that relates to people who fall under other categories. I.e., I want to see a shonen anime, or I want to see an action cartoon, but instead of like the big buff male character, let's have a big buff female character. Same concept, but with a gay character. Same concept, but with a person of color. Yada yada yada. And do not let those other attributes be the leading flashlight of, oh, come look at me because I am a person of color. Oh, come look at me because I am a female character. Come look at me because I am a gay character. Stuff like that. So when you finally get that, I think for a lot of people, it's hard to say, are they utilizing this aspect simply because they are within another group? And again, maybe there is things that I've missed that for people who are more close to the situation may see it as something that's being dangled and baited for them. But for me, I can't think of any situation that truly puts that character in a situation like that. And dude, in all honesty, he's one of my favorite parts about the show, especially when Omni-Man is looking for his son. He flies down. It's like, where's my boy?
Where's Mark?
Have you seen the memes sparked from that scene though?
There are many memes from many scenes.
There's like, so when he looks inside of the guy's car and goes like, "Where's Mark?" Some people take that scene like when you're a police officer and you pull someone over and you're looking for a reason to give them a ticket because he's looking around in the car. Oh, that's awful, but still funny. I don't know, man. It's also Adam Eve.
Yeah.
Oh no. Atom Eve. I always think Adam Eve, but it's Atom.
As did I for the longest time until I finally deciphered it.
Yeah, dude, I thought her symbol was I'm probably gonna get a little flack for this, but I thought it was like some type of like inclusive identity symbol. And so I realized, oh no, it's just the female symbol with an atom, neutrons and flying around it. I was like, oh, that makes more sense. Anyway, I love what they did with her character. They completely subverted the idea like, oh, that's gonna be the romance interest. Nah. And oh, she's gonna be like, the one that you have to feel sorry for it. Nah. If anything, she's probably the one with the best head on her shoulders in the show so far. She figured out what she wanted to do, and she went out and she did it. And she's rocking it. It's like, oh.
It's a good show.
It is. And oh, you do remember that
I thought I was going to be gushing about it. You gushed all the gush I had to gush, and then you gushed some more.
Bro, you had
you are like some kind of fruit snack from the 90s, you gusher, you.
Do you remember the commercials for Gushers?
I do not. I have purged all of those from my memory banks.
Well, let me remind you. They used to eat the Gusher and then their head would transform into the fruit. It was horrible.
Yep. That mental image was buried deep away in my recesses, and as soon as you said it, I knew exactly what you're talking about. I wasn't like, huh? Nope. My brain was just like, hey, here's that image from 2 decades ago, just sitting in the back of this filing cabinet, gathering dust.
I highly recommend that if you are an audio-only podcast listener to check out the video version over at youtube.com/essenceofzen, because I'm going to include the clip of those commercials of like the fruit-headed gushers.
I was about to say, alternatively, you could not do that and, just save yourself the trouble.
Reasons why not to watch the podcast. No. But yeah, man, I don't know. When I saw people gushing about Invincible early, I was like, I don't know, man, because I'm currently on a break from DC and Marvel. Like, I'm thinking.
Released any movies in a year? What's up with that?
Well, there's a bunch of TV shows.
Oh,
yeah.
And
I'm contemplating breaking my break from them just to watch Falcon and Winter Soldier. Only because I've heard some really cool things about it, and they brought in one of my favorite aspects that I thought they would never, and that being Isaiah Bradley, the second Captain America, who is tied to Tuskegee soldiers who were. And I'm sorry to put this bad juju, this bad mojo out there during these times, but the Tuskegee Airmen were people who were experimented on by the U.S. government. They were given quote unquote vaccinations, when in actual fact they were given syphilis, and they were a bunch of, and they weren't the only. There was also like a town of African Americans. Horrible moments in American history. But they took that historical moment and they essentially said, well, let's use that context to say that, they gave a second version of the super serum, a lighter version, to one of the Tuskegee soldiers. And that's how you get Isaiah Bradley, the second Captain America, who was lost in history, yada, 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 blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, I might go see this show just to see that and how they treat that character. Cool. But then slide back. But I digress. Love my tangents. Because I'm taking a break from DC and Marvel, specifically because a lot of what they've gone through, comics-wise and some of their other content, I'm just not in favor of anymore. A lot of it got pretty boring. Spoiler alert, I'm a Snyder fan. I enjoyed where he was trying to go with it. I know they're not going to continue that vision in that direction, so I'm kind of over it. So then here comes Invincible, showcasing a lot of the things that I've been wanting to see for a very long time. And granted, I still have yet to watch The Boys, but I have read parts of The Boys comics. So I'm just not as strongly inclined to go watch it. But that's also in there too. But that's not... Because The Boys aren't trying to actually be heroes in a quote-unquote realistic society. It's a massive parody and a reaction to the exact opposite. Kind of like The Watchmen, but in a different sense. But Invincible is. Invincible gives you a world of heroes and treats them like actual people that you would expect, in my opinion, to be out there, especially from a younger aspect of, I want to be a hero. It's all this, what it's cracked up to be. I can't wait to do this and that and this. And they get there and then they see, real people dying, real people that they cannot save, real people who die in their arms. Man, when Mark tried to save that old lady, broke her arm and still tried to save her, but she ended. That was powerful to me. That's the stuff I know that there is a preset flavor, a preset popularity for a lot of superheroes that's been around for a long time. I get that. I really do. When the New 52 started, and they gave us Superman who had just put on the cape and who has green behind the ears and was still making these mistakes, I loved it because I wanted to see Superman when he's not perfect yet. I wanted to see him work his way up to that. And people hated it. I understand why. I get why. But like just the idea of seeing who, in my opinion, I consider like the greatest hero of all time, having to work up and become that mold. That is one of the most interesting ideas to me. But when you cannot allow a perfect character to be imperfect, then you, in my opinion, you stunt that potential plot line and that potential work series. And what you end up getting is, oh, this Superman gets kryptonite cancer and dies. And oh, look, the original Superman that you all know and love was actually in this world always. He was hiding out on a farm with Lois, and he comes back in a black suit to help the current young Superman save the world. And when this Superman dies, the original Superman takes over. Are you happy yet? Are you happy? And it's like, no, because you just wasted a lot of potential. But with Mark, I see that potential, and I'm watching it and seeing him partner up with Cecil, and Cecil's like, "Hey, man, you've been through a lot of stuff. You can turn around and walk away, but I'll be honest with you. We need you. You know, we honestly probably cannot do this without you. But you can make your own decision if you want to walk away or you want to sign up and you want to keep going. And when he signs up and he's like, that is just, and I cannot wait for the rematch with Beastmaster or Beast Warrior, whatever his name is. Sorry, I've probably tucked your ear off.
No worries. I know that you're always more involved in the comic book scene than I am. So it's I'm helping with the show, and even I'm engaged in listening.
Yeah, I've contemplated trying to do more videos, trying to put these thoughts in different pieces and to just kind of basically give my perspective on a lot of the dynamics. And
I mean, hey, that's part of what at least my side of the podcast is about. You know, you go off, I go off. Just go off time. Go off time with Andy and Zane. Thanks for coming back.
Well, I know we're actually should be nearing the end of the session, but what more of an ample time to bring this up in this topic and with this nonsense? You heard about the whole Batman debacle, right?
Which one?
Batman does not eat seafood.
I thought you were about to say kill, but go on.
Okay, so there's a cartoon out called Harley Quinn. It's you know a comedy adult take on some DC stuff. You know, following Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy, but more specifically Harley Quinn. And the creators of the show talked about how they were in works with Warner Brothers to see how far they could push the line, right? Because there are a lot of raunchy jokes, and I mean like raunchy in a good way, not like sick for the sake of being sick. For instance, Harley Quinn turns on the TV and she sees Wonder Woman fighting. Is it Maya Master? A guy with he's short with the big head. He does the telekinetic abilities, right? And they're fighting and everyone's like, oh my god, they're screaming, and then he called the villain Maya Master calls Wonder Woman a country person without the O and without the tree.
Gotcha.
And everybody goes silent. Even the pedestrians who was running for their lives are like, whoa, did he just say that? Did he just call her that? Oh, oh man, that's crossing the line. And he's like, what? I mean, I'm a villain. No, man, that's no. And then in future episodes, they show how he hires a villain consulting company for marketing, and he goes on a talk show to quote unquote give his side. So he can kind of get past that event. And it's so stupid, so hilarious, but that's the kind of show it is. But they found out, or the creator of the show talked about how they had to cut one scene where they depicted Batman having dinner, having sushi with Catwoman. And Warner Brothers said, no, you can't do that because he's a hero, and heroes don't do that.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's not where I thought that was going to end up. Okay.
So you had a lot of jokes going around, they would take snapshots of old Batman comics, and Batman goes, I know every inch and nervous system of the male anatomy. And Catwoman's like, and the female anatomy too, right? And then Batman looks at her and Catwoman goes back, and the female anatomy too, right? You know? But you also had people like Zack Snyder who threw his hat in the ring and actually drew a picture of the event and with the caption "canon," and threw it out there, and it's just been a fun little ball game. But like just the audacity of the concept of what Warner Brothers don't want to be put out, even on an adult centered show, specifically for the marketing and the image of. And I get it, I do, but like this particular thing, I do not think was a something burger. This was nothing. Absolutely, he has a son. Heroes don't do that, but heroes conceive or goes and conceive. Like Warner Brothers, what are you doing? What are you doing? This is why DC needs to leave Warner Brothers, man. And no, I don't want Disney to buy Warner Brothers. I don't. Disney needs to take a chill pill.
Are you telling me you do not want to bow down before your Disney overlords?
No. I mean, I know Mickey has enough power to get Goofy off with murder, but no. And if you haven't seen that video, I highly recommend. Wait, have you seen it?
Have I seen, what was it?
It's an animation of Goofy on trial for murder.
Oh, yes. Yes, I have.
Murder? The demons told me to do it. I'll do it again.
I'll do it again.
I'm sorry. That kills me every time. But no, yeah, I don't want to bow before the mouse. You saw how long it took the Jonas Brothers to get out from underneath his boots? That's also a South Park reference.
I have not partaken of the Southern Park in a very long time.
Understandable. Oh, let's see. I think that does do it for the show. I will add on that hopefully for this episode and future use, the viewers and the listeners see improvements. We're upgrading some audio equipment in the video format. We have new studio lights that I'm still experimenting with right now. It's kind of set up in a very harsh light, so one side should be bright, one side should be a little bit darker to give a little bit of contrast. But we'll see. But yeah.
Also, one more thing to do before concluding the show.
Shoot.
I have a game recommendation.
Ooh. Do tell.
So this game just came out, like a week ago. And I was looking for a game to play with some of my friends, and we were kind of going over things, and somebody mentioned a game called Wildermyth, and I was like, what the heck is that? And it's, like I said, it's a new game. It's been out for like a week. And you don't have to play it multiplayer. You can play it single player. You just manage all your different party members. But it's kind of like a legacy video game sort of thing. It's definitely not for everyone. It's got a very unique art style that may not suit everybody's fancy. Everything is 2D and battles are like 2.5D. It's a turn-based strategy, but it's got a lot of random story elements, and the random story elements are very, very interesting. One of my characters was having dreams of this person who he then tracked down and spoke to them, and they were like, I used to be a part of you. We should obviously reconnect. And I just took them at their word. I was like, sure, let's go. And now he has a crow face. He's crow-faced.
Oh,
he's got a face.
Okay.
And it's awesome. It's really interesting. Like, all the characters, because part of the game is like characters age, everything is time related. The next enemy incursion is coming in 300 days. Well, it seems forever into the future until you've played the game for 300 in-game days. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, and now there's a big army of dudes coming to attack us. I guess we should go deal with that. I hope we did things that were worthwhile in the meantime. And it feels kind of like playing it's very close to feeling like playing a board game, but it's just different enough. There's just enough randomness, just enough hidden behind the curtain to make it feel like it's worth playing in the digital space. Because if there's anything I don't really enjoy, it's playing board games in the digital space, just because it lacks that human element. But if you like, I'm not saying Tabletop Simulator is bad. Like, I understand its purpose, but if you were to be like, hey, do you want to play games on Tabletop Simulator, or do you want to play games face to face? I'd play them face to face. But Wildermyth is like just enough mechanics to be like, all right, this is a good video game. You get to customize your character, like you get to customize everything about your character. The game assumes nothing about like gender roles or appearance or anything like that. You can make a person look like anything. I'm in a party with a blue-skinned, purple-haired woman. You know, you just whatever. And there's tons of random events, and your characters actually age with the story. Like I said, you think 300 games is a really, or 300 days is a really long time until it hits you. Well, you think your character's retirement age of 75 is really old until your character is 73, and then you're like, oh geez. All of the characters, your entire roster is going to end up rotating. And then from my understanding of it, and like I said, I haven't played this game a whole lot yet, but I am excited to do it more. My understanding is that as characters retire, they end up becoming like future characters that you can encounter. They become NPCs, and then you run into this old hermit, and you run into this strange bird-faced man, and you're like, why do you have a crow for a face? And he's like, let me tell you a story, but first here, have a +1 sword, or whatever. I'm just spitballing here. But the game just sort of compounds upon itself. And like I said, it's not for everyone. There's no like voice acting or anything. All of the story is conveyed through like comic book sort of panels that appear on the screen. So if you don't enjoy reading your games, like reading them a lot, then this might not be for you in terms of like story presentation. But there's a ton of mechanics. There's only 3 classes, quote, and I say that extremely lightly because every single class has a lot of ways to diversify them. In specific, the magic system is completely different from anything I've ever seen before. Instead of just like firing off spells or anything or using spell components, instead they call it interfuse. You interfuse with an object. Basically, the entire environment is destructible. But you interfuse with an object, and then depending on what you interfuse with, it determines what you can do with it. So maybe you interfuse with a nearby rock, and then you can hurl that rock at somebody. Or maybe you interfuse with a nearby like lit torch, and now you can call forth fire from the torch. Or maybe you interfuse with like a partially like a log that's in a river or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. So you might be able to use the log to like hurl shards of wood at your opponent. But since the log is also in the river, it's soaked up enough water that you could also, use the log for healing. And every item has a health bar, and the more you use it for magic, those health bars go away. You can also just attack the environment as well. But they both use the same idea of the object's health, So it's a very interesting magic system that I haven't even touched yet. I've only seen other people in my party use it. I haven't used it, but the guy who used it the most, he's like, this is a really cool magic system. I can't wait to use it. And like, there's so many like small, cool story related improvements to the game. You've got all these random events, and they can really change how your character evolves. And even like you get like these physical changes. Every piece of armor that you equip, every like transformation that your character undergoes, God forbid you have multiple. Apparently that's the thing that can happen. Look at me, I'm half crow, half golem. My parents were really weird in high school. But you've got all that transformational stuff going on, and then I'm talking so fast I can't even keep up with my own mind. I don't even know where I was going with this point. That is how much is going on in this game. Oh yeah, the small story improvements. One of the other small story improvements is if a character is reduced to 0 hit points, they don't just die. You actually make a story decision, and you can have them retreat but sustain a major wound that like changes them forever, or you can let them die but if they die, they don't just like fall over. They don't. Instead, you get like a valiant last stand sort of thing. We had a character drop to 0 hit points, and on the way out, if they had wanted to, they can either like unleash a rallying cry and everybody else gets tougher for that fight, or they can deal 10 damage on the way out, which in that particular situation was enough to kill the thing that had attacked them. You know, you do a valiant, like one last strike sort of thing. So, you know, all these like little improvements here and there, and just enough, you know, interest and intrigue, just like really good customization. It's a very feel good game to play. And my understanding, based on what other people have told me, is that it is also hard. I haven't seen that yet because, again, haven't gotten that far into it. But apparently, one of the guys that I play with decided to do the scenario we're doing, but he did it solo, and he lost.
Oh.
So, and this is like the tutorial. Like, it's not the tutorial. The tutorial. It's funny because the tutorial, quote, quote, is actually like a 5-chapter long like event, and only the first chapter is really the tutorial. They teach you how to play the game in the first chapter, and after that they're like, and now here's a bunch of monsters and they're going to try to kill you. And like you know, there's story behind the monsters too. Story everywhere. It's just a very interesting game. I don't know if it's for everyone. Like I said, there's a lot of reading. There are a million, like if you get into the nuance of the stats, there's like a million different like numbers that slightly tweak how your character plays a little bit at a time. You know, getting gear upgrades won't even necessarily always do something, because you can get like a fraction of a point. So if you get like 0.7 of a stat, you still have none of it. You have to get to that first whole number to get a point in that stat. So like so far, again, you know, on a sample size of having played this game twice, the progression isn't like each level isn't stunning. You know, it's a lot of breadcrumbs. But every change to your character in terms of like physical appearance does actually appear. You know, every change you can see. We got a character who's got a gem for an eye, you know, and that's in every scenario. You know, all of your armor changes appear all the time.
Oh, yes.
So it's interesting. It is definitely my cup of tea. If you're the kind of person who likes RPGs, or if you're looking for an RPG to play with some friends, this one isn't like, it's not graphically impressive, even like remotely. Like I said, it's all 2D and 2.5D. But it didn't like bother me. It wasn't like offensive to my eyes or anything like that. It looks fine. It conveys all the information that you need to be able to see. And the music, I really like the music. It's not like bombastic or like over the top adventure, but some of the quieter moments in the stories really made me like feel at ease, even if you know that you're gonna like fall into a pit trap like 3 panels from now. But there were definitely moments where I could just stop playing the game for a couple seconds and just listen to the music and really feel like I was like with the character in that particular moment. So another good good aspect of the game. So yeah, if you got a pile of friends, you can play it between 1 and 4 players, and you can assign the different characters in the game to different people if you're playing with multiple people. Alternatively, you can assign them to nobody, which occasionally you'll get some random NPCs, and I usually don't assign them to anybody, and then 3 people try to command the same character in the same turn. And honestly, that's just kind of funny because the idea is they're just like peasantry that are just around to try to protect the area. So you can imagine them just like running around like they've got their heads cut off, like, oh my gosh, eldritch horrors from beyond. They're not really that eldritch, but they're a little eldritch. There are tentacles. Let me tell you, there's a little bit of tentacles. Yeah, Wilder Myth.
Yeah.
It's a neat game. It's not very expensive either.
Yeah,
So.
I was gonna say I got the page pulled up on the video version of the podcast, and I will say that aside from your glowing recommendation for it, recent reviews overwhelmingly positive, all reviews overwhelmingly positive. The price $25. Yeah, it seems like a for me at least an instant buy, which I will be buying at the end of this session, after food. But yes,
It's definitely neat. It's got a lot going on, and I've been enjoying my time with it. The group that I'm playing with, everybody seems to be enjoying it, which is a relief because I had been trying for a while to get us. We had been playing Civilization 6 since that game came out, quite literally. And I was really trying to get to like steer us in a different direction, and we all seem to be enjoying this, which I'm very, very pleased with. So
yeah, honestly, and not to act like I'm comparing games, but I will say this will satisfy my taste, I believe, while I wait for Baldur's Gate 3.
oh
And
yeah, for sure.
And dude, like looking at the art as you stated, but like, and I mean this as a compliment as well. This reminds me of Paper Mario, but with like D&D aspects, or
That is an excellent way to describe it.
I like it. Like, I mean, I'm looking at one dude with like a firearm, and I'm like, it looks good. Yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna you sold it for me, and hopefully you aren't sponsored and you're doing this without telling me this is. I know you're not. I hope.
Yeah.
I think.
I'll let you know when I'm sponsored because it'll clearly mean that Armageddon is like right on top of us. So
I mean, looking at these temperatures. No, I saw a tweet that was like a reminder that 135 or 100 and something degrees Fahrenheit is the temperature at which meat begins to cook, and also a reminder we are all walking bags of meat.
I mean, there like I tell you recently that it like got up to 130 in some parts of Arizona.
Yes.
Did I tell you that?
Yes.
Yeah. There I mean, this isn't going to be news to anybody. Well, it might be news to some people, but it's not to me. That you can just go outside with like a pan and just cook meat like on the pavement. Like,
oh, okay.
Yep.
I'm looking.
Well, you should use a pan. Obviously, you don't want to slap it straight on the pavement. You're not going to be able to eat that.
Yeah.
You know.
Who knew that Mad Max was a documentary? Anyway. I cracked myself up. I'm trying to check and make sure if there's not one or two last things to say before we leave. I don't think so. So that's the show. Wildermyth, go buy it. Go look at it. We have
checked with the devs. It is pronounced Wildermyth. I thought it might be Wildermyth. We weren't sure. They have a Discord, which one of my friends posed the question in. It is pronounced Wildermyth.
Nice. Go buy it. I'm going to go buy it. I'm going to go try to convince Ryan to grab it as well. Same thing with Madison, and maybe find a fourth or something. I don't know. And play it.
Where could you find one of those?
I mean,
truly
you are potentially available. Though our timing has been really hard to do lately, though.
That is very true.
But as I always say, we'll work stuff out if we have to.
Yep.
At the moment, we're trying to finish up It Takes Two. I believe me and Ryan are super close to beating that. We'll probably beat it this Thursday. But yeah, so look forward to seeing content related to Wildermyth coming on the EOG channel. I guess.
Speaking of which,
mm-hmm.
Still waiting for Celeste on the EOG channel.
I know. It's actually on the list to do. Matter of fact,
you've been extremely busy lately, but I'm still looking forward to it. When it comes, I'll be pleased.
Duly noted. It's actually one of the reasons why I've been trying to push further in the It Takes Two, because once that's up, it frees up a time slot for me.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah. And so I was going to say, I need things like an editor and some whatnot. And no, we're not hiring at the moment. At the moment. But that'll do it for this episode. This is episode 7 of season 2, I think. Yes. Yes, episode 7 of season 2.
Yes.
Again, stay tuned for episode 8, where me and Lewis are going to dive deep into a lot of discussions around Windows 11 and the actions by Microsoft and some of the weird, unique decisions that they're going with currently with certain things like the Android app integration. But until then, as always, you can find us on nearly any podcast platform you want to listen to. YouTube.com/Essence of Zen, essenceofzen.org, which a site redesign is coming, I promise. The template is almost done for it. Right now, we're trying to tweak things to look better on mobile. And you can find us at our Discord, which is discord.chat/essenceofzen. All right, I will see you all in the next episode and or video. But until then, as always, take care, be safe, and drink water.
See you, nerds.
Essence of Zen After Dark is recorded by and for geeks and nerds alike. The intro and outro songs were provided by ProLeader, who you can find at proleader.bandcamp.com. That is PROLETER.bandcamp.com. If you have suggestions for topics you want to see on the show, then feel free to drop by discord.chat/essenceofzen and join the community and give us said suggestions. Thank you.